Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something I've seen Ben Pollack say in a couple of articles. It's something I also say I happen to agree with, but I thought I would kind of point out to people who think that I'm the only one saying this, uh, that there are people like Ben out there saying it. And no matter what you might think of me, or my coaching, or my lifting as a master's lifter, it's pretty hard to argue with Ben's results. Okay, he is a better lifter than I am, right? Objectively speaking, there's no opinion about that. He is a better lifter than me. Well, he's saying the same thing I'm saying. So at that point, it's like maybe people should listen, right? Maybe they should listen. And I'm not exactly a terrible lifter for a dude in his 40s in terms of strength. So what's going on with the Good Morning? Why is the Good Morning the best accessory for both? And he said that, the best. And it's a staple lift for me. It's a staple lift for me, and it really has become more and more and more so for me, to the point to where phases where I've cut it out, I've seen a difference historically. And I've watched what it does with my own lifters. And the results that they get from incorporating this and me making them do this exercise all the time is phenomenal. And every time one of them remove it from their training, we see regression. Every time they push the lift, we see progression, and we see improved mobility, improved health, improved recovery, all of these things. This exercise really has become what I consider to be pretty much a primary movement. It's no longer just a supplemental lift. And I agree with the West Side guys there that this is a primary lift too. Good mornings are something we get max on, which is very scary to a lot of people. And I get that. I get that that's scary to people. But when you understand the nature of the lift, and like with any other lift, there's a right and a wrong way to go about maxing out on something, and you treat it with respect, and you build the proper foundation, it's not a big deal. Okay? And I'm not talking about coming in and haphazardly, all you bro type good morning, psyched up. And that's something I think people forget with that too. I don't actually believe in people taking stems and psyching up and slapping themselves or pre-workouts or any of that for 1 rep maxes. I don't think that's a good idea. And when you look at a lift like the Good Morning, it starts to become apparent why that's not a good idea. And here's what I would say. If you wouldn't do something on a 1 rep max Good Morning, why would you subject yourself to whatever that same risk is when doing a squat, deadlift, or a bench press? People get hurt on any of those lifts too, doing stupid stuff. But over to the point. As far as the deadlift goes, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? It looks a lot like a deadlift. Okay? It looks a lot like a conventional deadlift. And depending upon the foot stance, it could look similar to your sumo deadlift. Okay? And it has carryover to both. Why? Well, because it's a hip hinge. Deadlifts are a hip hinge from the floor. The Good Morning is a hip hinge that we can load in a wide variety of modalities. Okay, it is a hip hinge that allows us to do very high volumes of training and recover from it. Okay, that matters from both a specificity perspective and a hypertrophy perspective. What do we mean specificity? Well, we mean a movement pattern carryover. We're loading a hip hinge repeatedly. And all deadlifts are hip hinge. All hip hinges tend to have some degree of carryover to each other, just like all presses have a degree of carryover. Most people get that a floor press, a dumbbell press, a decline press, all different movements, but they will have some carryover to your bench press. It shouldn't be difficult to figure out why. It's a similar type movement pattern with the same muscles involved. Okay? Shouldn't be too hard for people to grasp why. Why using dumbbells or a decline or a floor press will carry over their bench press. Well, the same thing with a Good Morning. Look, it's a hip hinge. It's a hip hinge. Look at it. You're hinging your hips. And what's a deadlift? Deadlift is a hip hinge on the floor. It's just a hip hinge in the air with a bar on your back. It's a squatty hip hinge because there's a squat bar on your back, but not really. The sumo deadlift is the most squatty of the hip hinges. But again, you just watch that, watch the deadlift here. Pull a heavy pull here. Right? What's happening here? Hip hinge. Okay? Pretty straightforward. People get that. It makes sense. They get it like, oh, okay. Anyone curious here, that's 515 for a 5 rep set on a deficit. But it's a hip hinge. The thing is, though, is that because of the moment arms involved, you're forced to use a lighter weight. Therefore, it has a little less axial loading. In other words, no matter how strong you get at a good morning, it's going to be very difficult to get the same weight on there that you get on a deadlift. Now, some people do it, and that's a worthy goal. But it's not going to be that easy because by comparison, if you guys watched there, that was 5 reps on a deficit with 515. The point of this video being made, I could only do, that's 355 on there for 6. All right. It's 160 pounds difference in the same rep range. This is easier to recover from because it puts less loading on the back in terms of compressive stress. Now there's the shear stress, a little bit different. But that doesn't actually exceed the deadlift. Just keep that in mind. Has the same limitation. Whatever your deadlift limitation there on the low back is what's going to be on the good morning. Okay, but it also is giving you a stretch reflex and all this stuff. It makes sense. It carries over. And all the same muscles are involved. It hypertrophies the muscles. Now, a lot of people will say, well, the squat though, Jason, we get that. We get the deadlift. That makes sense. How does it carry over to the squat? Well, because a squat is a good morning also. If you guys watch through this clip, and I've made other videos explaining that, the squat is a good morning with less knee movement. Okay? You have more flexion and extension of the knee joint on a squat than on a good morning. Therefore, the shear and the compressive forces are different because of the angles involved, but the movement's the same. All right, watch this quick squat. Not quite a max here. We're getting up there. But watch this box squat. Watch what my hips and my back do. And instead of envisioning me standing upright, imagine me bending over. All right, imagine bending over instead of being upright and watch exactly what the back and the hips do. All right? That's the same thing as a good morning. It's the exact same movement. The only difference is the squat involves more quad. The squat involves more quad. Now, a lot of people say, but Jason, the quads are the primary mover in the squat. No, they're one of the primary movers. I can assure you that most of you cannot leg extension with a straight barbell hanging from a swing because the machines are totally different loading. Those pounds don't carry over. They're not the same weight. I promise you, you can't even get anywhere near your squat. If you're a 500-pound squatter, I promise you, you can't leg extension a 500-pound barbell up and lock it. I bet you can't even do half of that. Quads produce less than half of the force. Maybe. On the squat. They're important, but they're not the primary mover. They're one of. They contribute enormously. But the movement pattern is the same. And the quads are being used on the good morning, just not to the same degree. So if you got really, really good at good mornings, and then you built your quads up, wouldn't that all carry over to the squat? The only muscle involved in the squat and that isn't involved in the good morning is the quads. And it's just involved to a lesser degree. Therefore, when we look at the good morning, it also literally builds every single muscle involved in the squat. other than the quads. It's not that hard to build your quads. Okay. Good morning has movement pattern carryover to both, and in both exercises it builds at least 80% of the muscles involved directly. That's why it's the best accessory movement, and we can handle a lot of volume on it. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.